the Earl owned all of it. Not just this part here, but the part straight on to the horizon in all directions, too. Literally everywhere the eye could see, 14,000 acres in all. It was that rare thing, a beautiful spring afternoon. The sun was shining and we were bathed in warmth. The jeep stopped, which was good, because I was pregnant and queasy from all the buffeting. With a world of lovely places to choose from, our host had selected as his preferred picnic spot a decrepit, semi-burned-down barn with most of one of the walls missing. The temperature seemed to fall 30 degrees, following the unwritten law that says on warm days old buildings in Britain are always freezing. We sat on bales of hay, skirting the bird droppings, and listened to the Earl discuss his latest quixotic scheme, investing in obscure British films, few of which had yet to make it to the cinema. I helped unpack the food. Hot canned cream of tomato soup in a thermos, poured into styrofoam cups. Make your own sandwiches of processed supermarket ham on white, Wonder-style bread. A bottle of orange-flavored sugar water, known as orange squash for the children. And some very nice wine for the grown-ups, which immediately rendered the food a non-issue, except for those of us who were not supposed to drink. What did I learn about my newly adopted country? That assumptions were made to be unmade. That true aristocrats are perhaps the only people in Britain secure enough not to care how others view what they drive, wear, or eat. That some aspects of British life would likely remain forever beyond the grasp of my feeble colonial understanding. And that when invited to a picnic in the country, you should bring an extra sweater, and possibly also some extra food. I had heard it a million times. Britain and America are two nations separated by a common language. But anyone who doubts the truth of it should have been in Boston, Massachusetts a few years ago when my extremely English husband, Robert, tried to rent a car. He telephoned Avis. "Hello," he said, sounding like Hugh Grant in 4 Weddings and a Funeral. "I'd like to hire a car." "Huh?" said the Avis operator. "I'd like to hire a car." "What?" she repeated. Robert immediately adopted a Prince Philip addressing the peasants approach, which meant that he enunciated with exaggerated slowness and increasing volume, as if the operator were feeble or deaf rather than just American. Eventually, he got her to understand that he had said hire, and that hire did not mean employ, but rent. And we got our car. Our vacation was saved. But multiply this little exchange by 1,000,000, imagine me as the ignorant peasant surrounded by people like my husband, and you will have an idea of what my early days in London were like. I moved for love. In the early 1990s, I got a job covering the publishing industry for the New York Times, a big change from my earlier assignments at the paper, when I covered things like Long Island, major themes, garbage, traffic, and taxes, and state government, major theme, health insurance. The publishing beat meant that instead of eating my meals in a subterranean Albany cafeteria and spending the evenings listening to legislators bicker about the mysterious formulas used to determine the size of New York City's mass transit subsidy, I got to swank around at fancy Park Avenue publishing parties and talk to famous authors. I also got to take editors out to lunch at expensive restaurants and go to the Frankfurt Book Fair, the world's largest and most exciting banquet of books, held annually in Frankfurt, Germany. Tall, boyish, and answering to the exotic name of Robert McCrum, my future husband appeared on the first night of my first trip to the fair, at a dinner given by Morgan Entrekin, a New York publisher and book fair bon vivant. Robert was a friend of Morgan's. I had been invited along in case I wanted to write an article about what Morgan got up to in Frankfurt, as Times publishing reporters generally do. Robert was like something out of Brideshead Revisited, or at least that's what I thought, not knowing very many British people, and not yet having read a lot of Evelyn Waugh. I could barely understand half of what he said.